Everyone, a warm welcome to all of you joining us from different corners of the world, whether it's your morning, afternoon, or evening in your time zones. We are now live with today's masterclass, and I can see many of the attendees have already started streaming in on YouTube. For those of you who have just joined in on this call, we would love to know which city are you exactly dialing in from. The chat box is open for all of you. If you can let us know which city are you exactly dialing in from. We have about 128 of us who have joined right now. Okay, we have Samarth over here who has joined in from Indore. We have Pragnesh joining in from India. If you can let us know which city exactly are you joining in from. We have students joining in from Bangalore, from Devas, from Mumbai, from Odisha, India, from Pakistan as well, from Mumbai again. We'll be waiting for a couple of seconds. We have students from West Bengal. All right. We have students joining in from the lengths and breadths of India and from across the globe as well. That's quite wonderful. Moving forward, introducing myself, I'm Moin Natarnaik and I'm representing Seed Global Education today. We are a higher education strategy consultancy firm based out in the United Kingdom, and we specialize in helping high potential students like yourselves achieve their dream of pursuing a STEM master's, a business master's, or an MBA at top global universities like the New York University Tandon School of Engineering. Today, over the next 1 hour, we'll be looking into Dr. Vinitsky's lab. How are we training self-driving cars with reinforcement learning? This masterclass today offers an inside look at how reinforcement learning is being used to design and train self-driving cars entirely within simulated environments. By relying on high quality synthetic data instead of costly and time consuming real world driving data, this approach presents a scalable and practical pathway for developing autonomous vehicle systems. New York University Tandon School of Engineering is the second oldest private engineering and technology school in the United States. The school's main campus is in Brooklyn Metro Tech Center, an urban academic industrial research park. NYU Tandon has been ranked number 38 as the best global university, and its top employers are Nordstrom, Microsoft, PwC, Amazon, Google, Oracle, EY, Deloitte, Apple, Goldman Sachs, and more. NYU graduate engineering programs exist in the field of mechanical, civil, urban, industrial, electrical, computers, chemical, biomedical, and financial engineering, along with programs in computer science, management, and technology. Before we begin, we have a quick poll for all the students who have joined this call right now. I'll be quickly launching the poll, and here it is on your screens right now. In your view, what will have the biggest impact on accelerating autonomous vehicle development? Is it more realistic simulators? Is it better reinforcement learning algorithms? Is it increased real world testing miles? Or a hybrid approach combining simulation and real world data? Will be up for another 8 seconds. For everyone who has joined in, the poll is now live. We'll be waiting for another 5 seconds. All right. Here is what all of you all think, that hybrid approach combining simulation and real world data is what's the way forward. And along with that, about 30% of you all think that better reinforcement learning algorithms is what's needed in accelerating autonomous vehicle development. That's wonderful. Before we go further, I would first like to introduce our speakers who have joined us today. We have with us Dr. Eugene Vinitsky, who is the Assistant Professor at NYU's Department of Civil, Urban, and Environmental Engineering. Dr. Vinitsky has worked on scaling up multi-agent reinforcement learning for the design of safe autonomous systems. At UC Berkeley, where he was advised by Alexander Bain, he received his PhD in controls engineering with a specialization in reinforcement learning and received a MS and BS in physics from UC Santa Barbara and Caltech respectively. Dr. Vinitsky has spent time at Tesla, DeepMind, Facebook AI Research, and was a researcher at the Apple Special Project Group before moving to NYU. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Vinitsky. Along with Dr. Vinitsky, we also have with us Ms. Carrie Bowling, who is the Senior Assistant Director for Graduate Marketing and Recruitment at the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Carrie focuses on developing and executing marketing strategies to attract prospective students and enhance recruitment efforts for graduate programs. With her expertise, she plays a key role in increasing visibility and engagement, ensuring that the institution's graduate programs reach and appeal to a diverse and talented applicant pool. Thank you so much for joining us, Carrie. With this, I now hand over the floor to Dr. Eugene for his masterclass.
Cool. All right. Just give me 2 seconds and we'll be ready to go. Okay. All right. Good morning. Everyone see my slides, or do you see my slides?
It's visible, Dr. Vinitsky.
Cool. Great. All right. Well, hi, I'm Eugene Vinitsky. I'm a professor at NYU in the civil engineering department and with an affiliation with computer science and the Center for Data Science. I'm going to be talking a little bit about our work on trying to design self-driving cars, primarily in simulation, to kind of bring down the cost of designing them and make it so that small teams can build their own self-driving cars. So what my lab focuses on is the sort of weird gap between the way that we build superhuman bots, like bots that are experts in StarCraft or Dota or Go or chess, and the way that we design robots, which go through an entirely different set of techniques that have almost no relationship with the way that we build self-driving superhuman game-playing bots. And the thing about the superhuman game-playing bots is they're all built through this technique called self-play. And the idea of self-play is that you're going to take two agents and you're going to play them against each other. And one's going to do a little better and it's going to learn from that. And so it'll get a little better. And then the other now has an opportunity to improve. And so it'll get a little better to catch up to the one that got ahead of it. And then they'll go back and forth and get better and better and better and better until they're superhuman. And this is not the way that we build robots, but it is the way we build human level bots for StarCraft, for Dota, for Go, chess, and a lot of other games. So the central thesis of a lot of work is like, where is this gap coming from? Why do we build superhuman bots with self-play reinforcement learning, this technique where agents play off against each other and get better and better, but we don't build self-driving cars this way, or we don't build robots this way, or we don't build all sorts of systems this way? And the answer of this talk is going to be that maybe we can. And I'm going to talk about a paper we put out about a year ago on how one could maybe do this using the same techniques. And so what I'm going to tell you about today is a simulated, potentially human level self-driving car that a simulator that we use to build that car that generates millions of hours of synthetic driving data per hour, and a demonstration that we can build a tiny, tiny little neural network that kind of knows how to drive a car. And I'll show you some videos of it doing that. So this talk, in short, is how to build an autonomous car with no human data. To give you a quick overview of the talk, I'm going to talk about what's called end-to-end planning. And I'll tell you a little bit about what end-to-end planning is if you're not familiar. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the type of algorithms that we use for these techniques so that you have a kind of better sense of the algorithmic toolbox. And I'm going to talk about what happens when you really scale things up, when you go from training agents at small scale to training them on the equivalent of web scale data, but for a robot. This is all going to come from a paper called Robust Autonomy Emerges from Self-Play. And if you're interested in learning more about the particular work done here, you could take a look at that paper. If you see the stars here, every author here with a star is one of our collaborators. And this is joint work that we all did together between everyone in the star. Everyone equally contributed. And so I just wanted to take a second to highlight them because, giving credit is important. Okay. So let's talk about multi-agent planning, which is kind of the core idea of doing self-driving, right? So when we're taking a self-driving car, it's not enough to be good at driving. You need to be good at driving around other people, right? And what are the components of being good at driving around other people? Well, they're roughly most self-driving stacks up until recently look something like this. So you have a perception stack, and the perception stack takes the camera information from the car, it takes the radar information from the car, the LiDAR information from the car, and it looks around and says, where is everything in the world given that information? So as you see in this image, there are these like boxes around the cars around them, and those are what are called bounding boxes that indicate where that object is. So we have our boxes, we know where everything is to some degree. And then we take those boxes and we turn them into predictions. And these predictions are sort of our best guesses about where everything in the scene is going to go. So you see how every car has a trajectory emanating out of it? That's a prediction that that car, the most likely trajectory that car is going to take is to continue along that path. Then, once we have our predictions, we turn them into plans. We say, okay, we're the self-driving car. We could go here left, we could go right, we could go straight. Which of these trajectories that we could take, given our predictions about the world, are good and safe? So we're going to look at all our potential trajectories. We're going to roll them out in our imagination and say, this one looks good. We're going to take that trajectory. And then given the trajectory that we selected or highlighted, we have our control, which tells us how to actually follow that trajectory using our steering wheel and our accelerator and our brake. And in this talk, I'm going to not talk about perception, but I am going to talk about an agent that, given reasonably good perception from the world, knows basically how to go straight from that perception to how to drive. So we're going to take in these bounding boxes, and then we're just going to drive on top of the bounding boxes. And we're going to do all of that without using any human data. So we're going to do it entirely in simulation. And what we're going to show is that that entirely simulated policy learns some kind of robust driving strategy that works with humans, even though it has never seen any humans at training time. And we're going to call that process of generalizing to humans without ever having seen them zero-shot generalization. But one might ask, why would you want to do this? Why do we at NYU have any interest in designing a self-driving car entirely in simulation? There are many companies that are pursuing alternative approaches, such as driving many, many miles, learning from those many, many miles, and converting them into better and better driving policies. And I'll say a few things about why we are pursuing this particular avenue, in contrast to how many people are doing it. So to kind of reiterate, the increasingly common approach that you'll see in companies from like Tesla and BYD, and even probably from companies like Waymo, is to collect a big data set, to take the idea that has transformed machine learning and say, okay, well, the problem is we don't have enough data. So they'll collect billions of miles. They'll take those billions of miles and they'll take every action that a human being took over those billions of miles, and they'll learn to mimic them. So if a human saw a car in front of them and then they hit the brakes, we're going to try to learn a model that also hits the brakes in that moment. And if we put those two things together, and we get a big enough data set, we're going to hope that what comes out of it is a self-driving agent that is as robust as human beings. And the problem is that so far we haven't seen this. The imitating human beings makes us better and better, but it doesn't yet get us to the level of the best that we need for the best self-driving cars, which is that roughly every 100,000 miles, there's a takeover. So somebody has to grab the wheel. And then roughly every 100 million miles, there's a death, which is about the rate at which humans die in car crashes on the road. And so our motivation as a lab is that we're not trying to build human level cars. We're trying to build superhuman cars, right? We want cars that, whereas humans crash every 20,000 to 100,000 miles, we want them to never crash. We would like to build something that is so good at driving, it avoids every collision that it could avoid. Two, we're an academic lab. We're not going to have a billion miles. We can't drive our cars on a billion miles of the road. And we think it's inherently intellectually interesting to try to figure out how can we do this with less data, right? How can we, in fact, you do it with no data at all? Because if we can do this with no data, then all sorts of things become possible. Maybe things, instead of, taking 10 years to build a self-driving car, you can build it in half a year. And then you can use those same ideas to build an urban delivery robot. You can use those same ideas to build a construction robot. And so you'll get this kind of acceleration of what is possible. And I'm going to just move on very slightly. So there are three ingredients we pursue in this work and in the lab that are, very useful. And I will tell you about this like algorithmic toolbox that we use in case you want to learn more about it in the future. I don't have a timer on me, so if somebody could give me like a 5-minute heads up when I'm running out of time, just let me know. That would be awesome. So our first ingredient is a scalable algorithm. And I told you a little bit about this algorithm called self-play, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it now. The idea of self-play is you have your agent, here represented by what's called a policy. So each agent here is represented by pi sub t. And pi sub t means the agent at the tth iteration of the algorithm, right? So before, at the previous iteration is pi sub t plus 1. At the next iteration, minus 1. At the next iteration, it'll be pi sub t plus 1. What we're going to do is we're going to put many, many copies of our agent into the world, and we're going to let them all play against each other. And we're going to take all of those collected games that we get from playing against each other, and we're going to see what strategies succeeded in those sequence of collected games. Then we're going to take all of those strategies and see the ones that succeeded, and take that information and convert it into a new, better agent, pi sub t plus 1. Now we'll place all those copies of pi sub t plus 1 into the world, and then we'll run that loop over and over again until we have what looks like a really good policy. So just to kind of dig into it a little bit more, from the perspective of any agent in the world, all it's doing is running around, taking actions, which in this case is accelerating and braking and steering, seeing how the world responds to that, like how their state of what they see updates, and then getting a reward for that action that says whether that action was good or bad. And so from their own perspective, they're living in their own little world and they're just driving around. They don't know anything about this broader loop of agents becoming better and better. They're just trying to drive and stay alive. So, kind of zooming in a little bit on what this looks like. Here's a screenshot from one of our simulators. You see all these different colored cars, and you see all these different colored circles. Every single one of these agents knows which circle it wants to get to, and that corresponding circle has its own color. So they're trying to get to the circle that has their same color as them. And they're trying to do that without colliding with anyone else. So they want to get to their circle as fast as possible, but they don't want to collide. And they are going to, and every single one of them is driving the same copy of a neural network on top of themselves, but making decisions on their own. So every agent is to some degree identical, but making decisions fully locally. And then in particular, if this is maybe a niche technical detail, but if you want to know the exact training algorithm we use what's called PPO, or proximal policy optimization. And you can read more about that or ask, questions later. I also don't see the chat. So if somebody has a question, I don't know about it. So this type of loop of deploying agents in this way is almost the way that human level or superhuman level bots are built. So algorithms like AlphaStar and PPO and AlphaGo are all built on this core self-play loop of playing agents against each other, seeing who did the best, and letting them improve over time. And this is how we're going to try to build our cars, taking the same ideas and moving them over. But there is one important nuance that makes driving different from every game where we've been able to build superhuman cars so far. And this is the nuance that really makes things tricky. The first is that this nuance is that all the games for which we have superhuman game-playing bots are what are called zero-sum games. You can think of, as an example of zero-sum games, things like poker or chess or Go. And the important property of these zero-sum games is that you know the reward. You know when you've won the game. And we don't really know what people are optimizing when they drive. And most importantly, there's a best way to play that you can just play. When you're playing chess, there is in fact a best strategy. And you just need to figure out what that best strategy is, and then you're good to go. But that's not true for driving. The right way to drive in America is not the right way to drive in China, is not the right way to drive in India. And so you need to drive the way that people expect you to drive, right? So it really depends on where you're driving. You can't just pre-compute this best driving strategy and run it. So what we're going to do is, instead of trying to compute the best driving strategy, we're going to try to compute a driving strategy that works in a lot of settings. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to build a really rich, diverse, complicated world, simulated world. And we're going to train our agents to do well, no matter what weird thing happens in their world. And we're going to claim that if we do this at scale, if we train our agents to respond to so many different things, then when they're deployed into the world, that it's going to be much easier to drive in that world, in the real world, than it is to drive in our simulator, which is going to be a very scary place to drive. So we build the simulator, which we call GigaFlow. And this simulator basically consists, is what's called a batch simulator. So basically it runs on the GPU, and it can generate millions of steps of training data per second. Locally, every agent is just driving around these maps trying to collect goals. So we place the agent in the world, and we give it a bunch of goals all over the map and say, just try to get to your goals without colliding with anyone. And there will be hundreds of other agents on the map also trying to accomplish this. I'm going to skip some small number of details here. But what the benefit of building our simulator in this way, so the simulator runs entirely on the GPU, is it lets us really, really scale up training to levels that were previously commercially inaccessible, and actually just nobody really trains at this scale. And basically, we're going to generate for our agents 10,000 years of driving experience. They're going to be driving with millions of simulated drivers at any time. In total, these 10,000 years of driving experience are going to correspond to 1.6 billion kilometers of simulated driving. And because of the way we built this very carefully, this is maybe going to sound like a lot of money, or maybe not, but it's actually pretty cheap for what you get. You're going to be able to build these really cool agents for about $7,000 on an 8 GPU node with about 10 days of training. But if you want to scale it down, you could just run it for an hour and get 10 million kilometers of simulated driving. You'd still learn something pretty good from that. Or the other way I like to think about it is about $5 per million kilometers. When we put this all together, our training setup called GigaFlow, which is the bottom, these 1.6 billion kilometers of training data are the distance between the sun and Saturn. So it's kind of an astronomical amount of data. What do we get for that? We get a simulator that looks something like this. So I'm hoping this plays, and it's not going to play. All right, well, I'm going to stop share and actually just show this video really fast because it's worth seeing. One second. And then I'll also know what time it is. QRS. Here we go. We get a simulator that looks like this. So there's all these differently sized cars, all trying to not collide with each other while never exactly knowing what somebody else is going to do. So if you look around and you put yourself in the perspective of one of these cars, it's a very scary world to drive in. You never quite know what's going to happen next. And while the simulator is slowed down so that you can watch it, in reality, it runs thousands of times as fast as this. Okay, so I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to zoom ahead. A cool thing we've discovered is that by training in this way, we get a bunch of agents that are basically perfect on every benchmark that we can look at. So there are a lot of common benchmarks that people use in self-driving. There are a benchmark called Carla, Newplan, and Waymax. And on each of those benchmarks, our agents are basically state of the art, despite the fact that they've only trained in the simulated world and they've never seen any of these benchmarks. So I just want to end really quickly with some kind of cool observations that I think are non-obvious, even if you go out and read the paper later, and that I think are exciting and point to a different way of doing reinforcement learning. The first is the thing that controls our self-driving car is basically the smallest neural network anyone's ever seen. Whereas if you go to LLMs, they're these big 100 billion, trillion size parameter models. Our self-driving policy is a 3 million parameter model. It is an extremely small neural network that you can run extremely fast on literally your laptop. So that lets us do a lot of weird things. Two, the actual neural network that we're building doesn't just model drivers, it also models pedestrian behavior, cyclist behavior, and driver behavior all at once. So it's able to like play act as many different types of people. That's also neat. Two, in our simulator, we're able to generate 1,000,000 kilometers between collisions. So humans collide every 20 to 100,000 kilometers. And admittedly, these are simulated miles, but at least in our simulator, we achieve an unprecedented amount of robustness. So our cars, from the perspective of the simulation, look incredibly safe. But I think, one thing that I want to point out is that the things we're doing here are, while they're applicable to self-driving, they're actually applicable to many different settings. And as a lab, we're starting to explore other places where these ideas are applicable. So we can think of Gigaflow as some kind of game of trying to reach goals without colliding, some kind of mechanism of generating diversity. So we have all these differently sized cars. The cars have slightly different objectives, like some want to collide, some hate colliding, stuff like that. And then an algorithm that takes all that data and converts it into something useful, in which case self-play RL. And you could think a lot of things go into this box. You have some kind of highly interactive task that agents need to do together. You have some mechanism of generating a complex, scary, diverse world. And three, you have some kind of scalable algorithm that can consume that data and use it. And a lot of things go into this box. So for example, collaborative information discovery, trying to partner up with somebody to find something useful on Wikipedia. You could generate diversity by playing with different weak or strong large language models. And then you could still use scaled RL to solve this. Or a human robot task handoff in construction settings. You could have lots of different agents that prefer left hand, right hand, different things. I'm almost done, by the way. And then again, same thing, scaled RL for solving this. So some quick takeaways. Through the methods we've been developing in the lab, we built the first simulated planner that zero-shot ACEs benchmarks. Two, there's not really a wall for end-to-end RL. When you train on 1 trillion parameters, you get a way better policy, trillion samples. And three, you could take these ideas of diverse training in a simulated world and use them for all sorts of different things besides self-driving. And that's something we're going to be pursuing at NYU in the future. So I'm going to skip the limitations and just jump to the end and say, thank you to my lab, my students, and my collaborators at Apple. And thanks to my lab who are listed here. And thank you all for your time. And if you have any questions, we can take them later. And I hope everyone's having a good evening, I suppose.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Dr. Vinitsky. We have quite a lot of questions which are coming from the students on this particular topic. Just give me a minute. All right, perfect. Dr. Vinitsky, one of the questions which has come up by Parthi is asking that what advantages do transformers have over convolutional neural networks for processing these kind of driving scenarios?
I don't think anyone knows exactly the answer to the question of why transformers are better than CNNs in some settings. I think it's an active area of debate. There are many settings where transformers seem to be better and are starting to be used for a lot of things. We don't actually use a transformer in this work. We use a particular variant of what's called a multi-layer perceptron. But I think it's an active area of things that we're trying to understand. If I can just how much time do you have for questions? I can just snag a couple of these.
Sure.
So one question here is, how do we incorporate realistic randomness and organic traffic behavior into synthetic driving data, especially for densely populated, chaotic cities like Mumbai, where actual traffic patterns are highly unpredictable and don't follow strict rules? I love that question because one of the things that you get if you watch the simulator for long enough is it actually does look like traffic in Mumbai. So I've been to India a bunch of times, and that because of the way that we build this world to be extremely chaotic, it actually, like, you see roadblocks all the time. You turn and suddenly something weird is happening. There are pedestrians weaving in between the cars. There are people breaking the road rules constantly, and so it actually looks a lot more like traffic in a world where road rules are a little less refined than in settings like like some highway in America where everyone is like mostly following the rules correctly.
Uh,
And we do this other thing where when cars crash into each other, they form roadblocks. And so
mhm.
there's actually like all sorts of things scattered and stuck on the road everywhere, and that makes things complicated. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, Dr. Vinitsky. According to one of the reports, in a 1 kilometer radius in Mumbai, there are about 3,000 to 5,000 cars during the peak time. Do you think this
Yeah.
model would be able to work in such a scenario?
Yeah. So I unfortunately have a video of it working in such a scenario that I can't show right now. I'm really sorry. For particular reasons, I'm not allowed to show it. But yes, it in fact is extremely good at working in those type of highly dense scenarios. That's like the thing it's best at, actually.
Got it. Got it. Dr. Vinitsky, one of the question which Ismat is asking, Indian roads are constantly under construction. There are temporary diversions, there are barriers, there are workers on the road majority of the times. Not just in India and Mumbai as such, but in all the developing countries, that's the case. And there are zero digital updates to either Google Maps or other apps which are there, unlike
Yeah.
Western cities where construction zones are well marked and mapped out. How are these corner cases handled, and how do simulation-based reinforcement learning handle these dynamic, unpredictable changes, which are not
Yeah.
there in any pre-existing map?
Right. So the thing about this agent is it's not relying on a well-defined map that exists. It's just
Mhm.
looking at the world around it and responding to what's happening there. So the fact that like all it sees, all it knows about is like, here are the edges of the road that I shouldn't drive off of. Here's roughly a lane. I probably want to stay in the lane in the right direction to the extent possible. But beyond that, everything is just a bunch of boxes that you don't want to collide into. And so it kind of reasons about that fact. And if a car is on the wrong side of the road and driving in the wrong direction, it's seen that in the simulator. That happens all the time. If somebody does a U-turn in the middle of an intersection, that happens in the simulator all the time. Um, so that's kind of. I wish I had this video that I could show y'all.
Got it. Got it. One last question, Dr. Vinitsky, which is there. You mentioned about many actors can take part in this entire model about cyclists, about pedestrians, etc. How many actors, different type of actors in totality can be included in this particular algorithm?
There's no limit to how many actors you include. It's as many as you want to define. We have drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians, but you can add really whatever else you want in. Another actor is just a different set of rules and a different set of dynamics.
Got it. Dr. Vinitsky, another question which Vishesh is asking about what kind of GPU is used. So if you can tell a bit more about system level design which is used in building this algorithm.
Yeah. So when we did this work at Apple, we did it on what are called like A100s, which are fairly expensive GPUs. Now that we're at NYU, a lot of my lab does this on what are like 4090s and RTX 8000s, which are RTX 8000s are at this point like almost like they're just very cheap GPUs. They're, I don't know, like maybe a couple $100. I mean, again, not cheap, but like relative to an A100, which is like $40,000, quite, you can get really far with, the type of GPUs that you would use on your laptop to play a video game.
Got it. Got it. Dr. Vinitsky, another question which has come up by Sundos is what is the biggest open problems and the ethical problems in building such scalable abstraction layers for multi-agent autonomy as such? You mentioned that agents are competing against each other and then trying to find out the better result. So what are the biggest problems over there and ethical considerations over there?
I mean, this is a simulator, so in some sense, there aren't really any ethical considerations to be had. The ethical considerations, show up when you put it on the road, and they're, I think the most ethical questions are about, how do you deploy something in maybe a democratic way, right? I'm taking my automated policy. Before I put it on the roadway, I don't know how much risk I'm placing to the people around me. And so I have to I'm putting this possibly risky thing into the world, and I have to make a decision about how do I respect the fact that other people didn't necessarily consent to participate in this experiment. So I'd say that's probably the biggest one, is about how do we collectively agree on the deployment of possibly dangerous technologies? Once they're safe, once we know that they're safe, there's less of an issue. But before we know that they're safe, how do we decide if who's allowed to do this, who's doing this? And I guess the other one is obviously, when a self-driving car causes harm, who's responsible? Is it the company? Is it I think it's obviously the company, but you know it's a yeah. So I'd say those are the big ones.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. One of the question which Aditya has asked Dr. Vinitsky is, in dense highways where merging is happening and several vehicles are competing for space, how does attention scale to many nearby agents as such in the model?
So uh attention is, when we think about large language models, attention is used to attend to thousands of tokens. When you're driving, maximally there's maybe 50 things that you need to attend to. So the scale at which you need attention to work is actually way below the scale that it can work. So it's, scales reasonably well. We
Got
don't
it.
actually use attention in this paper. We use a slightly modified variant of it.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so much for answering all the questions, Dr. Vinitsky. If some of them come up, we would definitely ping you up. But thank you so much overall for attending the session and for such a lovely masterclass. And I hope that students got to learn a great deal of things from this masterclass today.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. And, I hope to talk to some of y'all in the future.
All right. All right. Before we move ahead with the second section of our today's session, here's a quick poll for everyone who has joined in today. I'll be launching the poll right now. Just a second. And the poll is on your screen. What do you need the most help with in your study abroad journey? Is it deciding where and what to apply for, which university and which program to apply for? Is it about understanding how your profile fits different programs? Second. Is it presenting your story effectively in applications, preparing that holistic application of yours, or figuring out cost, funding, and affordability? What do you think you need the most help with in your study abroad journey? We'll wait for another 7 seconds. Last 3 seconds. All right. So about 8% of you all need more help with figuring out costs, funding, and affordability for a graduate program, followed by 27% of you all want to understand how your profile fits better with different programs. Answering the second thing, we also have a profile evaluation session with New York University Tandon School of Engineering on 29th of January. The link for registering for this one-to-one profile evaluation session is on the chat. With this, I now hand over the floor to Carrie.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. So apologies that there's two of me on your screen, maybe. I was having some audio issues, so I had to log in my audio on a separate device. So thank you for your patience with that. And hopefully the presentation by Professor Vilinsky was really helpful and exciting. It's just a snapshot into the type of amazing research that's happening here at NYU. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the application process, as the poll that we just did sort of alluded to. The types of things that I can help you with. So I'll go ahead and talk a bit about that. Like I said, my name is Carrie. I'm a senior assistant director here at NYU Tandon School of Engineering. I am basically the person you can come to that is going to help you through the application process from the very beginning stages. Maybe you're not even sure if you want to apply to NYU and you're trying to figure that out, all the way up until the time that you arrive on campus. Myself and our office are here to help guide you through this process. We really are we're here for you. That's why we work in this world, or in this position, in this office, is to help students. So as a part of that, I'll be able to talk to you a little bit about the institution as a whole. So there are some things that we always like to highlight for students to let you know a bit about our institution. I'll cover this stuff quite quickly here today, so that way I can be available for questions. I know we're on limited time, so I'm just going to do a quick presentation here. NYU is located in New York City. It was founded in 1854, and we offer 34 different degree or different graduate programs. So this would be master's and PhD, a combination of them, and they are across 11 different academic departments. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a few of our different programs that we offer. This is not an extensive list, but you can see that our programs vary across a wide variety of engineering program topics. So if you want to know a full list of what our programs are, you can see those on our website. Recently, we've jumped over 30 spots in the rankings, which is more than any other engineering school within the last 10 years. You can see in the top right-hand corner some of our rankings that we're really proud of. Our institution obviously has a lot of resources at its disposal, and that is why our rankings are so high. One of those is support with the research, like our professor is doing, which is really great. NYU is actually the largest private university in the United States. So even though you're going to have a lot of one-on-one support from faculty, you're also going to have the backing of a large institution, which is going to give you access to a lot of resources. One of those other resources, besides, of course, the amazing research that we're doing and access to amazing faculty and our academic programs, is also our career services. We have a plethora of career services and support systems for our students, one of which is our Wasserman Career Center, which is a career center that is available for all NYU students, so not just Tandon students. And they help students find internships, on-campus jobs. They help with interview prep, all sorts of things. They bring companies onto campus to do fairs, so you can talk to them about applying for internships and looking for work once you graduate. But we also have, in addition to that, a specific service that's just for Tandon's engineering students, which is the Tandon Career Hub. And the Tandon Career Hub offers additional support on top of the support that you're already getting from the university's Career Center. So again, we're really trying to make sure that our students have the support that they need, that the staff that work in those career service offices are attuned to what's happening on the ground as things change within the tech world and the hiring world within tech. They're able to adapt and help support our students to get prepared for that job market. One of the ways that they do that as well is something called the Summer Career Academy. So if you're thinking about applying for this fall, and you attend starting in the fall, right before fall starts, they have an online event that you can join, which they call the Summer Career Academy, where basically they run down through all of the different support systems and opportunities that you would have through our different career centers, and how you can utilize those prior to even arriving on campus. So that way, when you come to campus, you're all set, you know what to do, you can have a game plan, so you can hit the ground running. So that way you're able to, get everything that you need to get sorted. in that first semester. So by the second semester, you can start applying for your summer internships and really get ahead of the game. We think that really prepares our students to find internships and job opportunities when they are ready to do so. One thing I want to quickly highlight, I'm not going to deep dive into this, but you can find more information on our website. Just some of the perspectives that NYU currently has. We really take seriously where we are in the world and how the research that we're doing can really solve today's greatest challenges. So we just want to highlight some of the different research topics that we are currently involved in. All of our programs may have an element of this within the different master's or PhD programs that we offer. So there's a lot of cross-disciplinary learning. So this isn't an extensive list of everything, but it's sort of where we are currently focusing our research across all of our different programs. So that's industrial, urban, and environmental sustainability, as well as advanced materials, quantum technologies, and integrated systems and devices, an interconnected and automated future powered by artificial intelligence. We also are focusing a lot on engineering health and systems engineering and complex decision making. So again, if you want to see how your particular program of interest fits into this, you can find out more information on our website. And then just to talk a little bit about some of the logistics, if you are interested in applying to NYU, one of the first things I always tell students is to think about is the deadlines. So for spring semester for this year has already begun. It started last week. So obviously the application for that is closed. But if you are interested for a future term of starting in January, the application deadline for that is typically November 1st. For the following year, so for 2027, that application won't open until later this summer, as we are still processing applications for fall 2026 right now. If you are still interested in studying in the fall for a master's degree program, you have until February 15th to submit any master's application. So you still have time. It's not a lot of time, but you still have plenty of time to get that application in and completed in order to get a decision released to you in time to study in the fall. If you are interested in PhDs only have a fall entry term. The application deadline for that is December 1st, so that has passed. However, there are select PhD programs that still have live applications. So if you go onto our website and you see that the PhD that you're interested in is still available online, you are able to submit an application. We highly recommend that you submit that as soon as possible. But we cannot guarantee a decision will come back to you in time for you to be able to attend for fall 2026. So because you are applying past the deadline. So just keep that in mind. And some PhDs have fully closed their applications, and those will continue to close over the next couple of weeks. So just keep that in mind. But again, if you're thinking about applying for future terms, December 1st is typically the deadline for PhDs for the future years. Once you know your deadlines, thinking about collecting all of your materials for what you need for your application is really important. So on the bottom left part of your screen there, you'll see our application requirements. These are listed on our website as well with much more detail. So if you do have more intensive questions about that, you can check that out. It is an online application. You typically do have to pay a $90 application fee for that. However, for attending today's session, you will be able to access our application fee waiver code, which is on the screen there, which is the Tandon BKLNY or YN. I can't spell, which is an abbreviation for Brooklyn. So you can take a screenshot of that. That never expires. As long as you submit that into the application prior to submitting your application, that $90 application fee will be waived. Of course, as a part of your application, you will need to submit transcripts or consolidated mark sheets. We accept unofficial copies for the application review process only, but we do require official transcripts and your proof of graduation or proof of degree once you are admitted. So if your institution has issued you those transcripts, you can upload them yourself at the time of application for review. But just keep in mind that later on, you will need to contact your university's registrar to have an official sealed transcript documentation sent to us directly for us to allow you to start your coursework. Like I said, if you have completed your bachelor's degree already, you'll need to submit a proof of your degree. or a provisional certificate once it's issued. And then obviously, if you're currently studying and don't have that yet, you'll just submit the transcripts that you have. You'll provide a personal essay response to essay prompts that we have in your application. You also will need to submit a resume, 2 recommenders. We don't have recommendation letters as a requirement. For us, you submit contact information for 2 people. They need to be professional contacts or they need to be university contacts. And they will fill out a form of recommendation for you and then can add a letter to that if they wish. And then obviously for international students, you do need to provide some sort of English proficiency exam. And then just want to highlight there that the GRE is optional for all students on the master's and the PhD level. I know I'm running out of time, but I quickly just want to talk about scholarship because I know that that was also a big concern for students. So all students that are admitted at the master's level are automatically reviewed for scholarship consideration at NYU. There's no additional scholarship application that you need to submit. You're automatically reviewed from NYU's side. And so the awards are then based upon academic merit. So usually the eligibility for that is having a CGPA out of around a 3.5 out of the US 4.0 scale. So the estimations for that are around an 80 to an 89% or an 8 out of a 10-point scale. Again, that's sort of where they start. And then those scholarships are partial scholarships, and they range between $3,000 and $12,000 per year on average for students who are awarded them. Of course, there are outside opportunities. I know SEED also has a scholarship as well that they provide, so we always recommend students look at those additional opportunities as well. But I'll stop there so we have time for questions. Hopefully that gives you a little overview of the application process and NYU as a whole.
All right. Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation, Carrie. I hope that students got to learn quite a lot before they prepare for the applications for fall 2026. One of the questions which has come up, Carrie, in our Q&A by Priyanshu is asking what are the career opportunities available which students can pursue in their domain after getting into a MS in CS. If you can highlight a bit more on the career services at offer in NYU, which will help students with their internships, employment opportunities, etc.
Yeah, so I just want to sort of clarify a bit too the way that it works in the United States, because I know like in India, a lot of times universities will sort of work to set you up with a position as a part of your academic studies and sort of a guaranteed placement. In the United States, it typically does not work like that, and it does not work like that at NYU. Students are responsible to apply to and find their own job opportunities. So it's quite difficult for me to say, like, exactly for your particular program, what jobs are available to you. Knowing and understanding the job market is also really important, but that's what our career services is there for. They are experts in understanding what the job market is, what skills you have as an MS student, whatever you're studying, whether that be CS or other things, and then being able to help you curate your resume and help you as you're applying through things so that you can highlight the correct things that companies are currently looking for in regards to the skill sets that you have. Our students over the last few years have had what we call placement rates. So these are students within 6 months of graduating, they've either moved on to a PhD or they have are working in their field that they would like to be working in within 6 months. Our percentage of that is somewhere between like 97 and 99% of our graduates within 6 months are pursuing something that they want to be pursuing. So what that tells you is that our career services are setting students up for success to help them navigate that process and understand things within their own markets and what that looks like. And they're able to highlight the skill sets that students are getting in their programs because the skill sets you are getting are clearly marketable and hireable. But if you're looking for more specifics about like what types of work I can do with my type of degree and things like that, I always recommend students check out our website too, because what you'll see there is information about, what companies students are going to, the types of jobs that they have gone to in the past few years. You can always talk to a faculty member within that department that can give you some anecdotal information about where students are ending up. Just if you're thinking about, where you yourself want to end up. I always tell students it's important when you're going through that master's process or thinking about going to graduate school is to start at the process of where do I want to be? What job do I want to have? If you don't know what's really out there, starting that process of the research of like where you want to end up is really important, because then you can work backwards from there and think, is this program going to give me the skill sets that I need to get the type of job that I want? Instead of thinking about, oh, I'm going to apply to this school and then it'll get me this job or this job, and I might like that, but I might not. It's better to sort of know what your goals are and then work backwards from there to see if the university provides you the support that you need. But like I said in the presentation, we have a lot of career support to help you through that process of applying to any jobs or internships you might be interested in.
Got it. Thank you so much for that, Carrie. Carrie, one of the question which Praval is asking, what does the admission committee look for in a student beyond test scores and GPA? What really catches the eye of the review committee over there, and how does a standout application come through?
Yeah, great question. This is a very common question. Everyone's always looking to figure out, how do I make myself stand out? How do I look different from everybody else? And I know that can be really overwhelming. But one thing I want to highlight to students is that, if we were just looking at your test scores and your GPA as a decision-making process, we wouldn't ask for everything else that's in your application. So the first thing to think about is that we have a holistic approach to our application process. So we are looking at the other things that are coming into your application, and those are telling us a story about who you are. So it's important to take those other aspects of your application as serious as you are taking your testing and, your coursework that you're already doing and have completed. The other thing I would say is that it's important to highlight things that you're doing outside of the classroom. So obviously your grades and your test scores, those are important to us. They let us know that you are academically prepared to be able to handle the rigor of our graduate programs. But they don't really tell us what you're interested in and how this program fits into your goals and what you've been doing outside of the classroom. Are you a part of any, clubs or something? Have you published any papers? Have you done any internships? And then how do those things impact the fact that you want to study this program? So students always think things like, oh, maybe the essay isn't that important, or, maybe the recommendation letters aren't that important. But what I tell students is those are opportunities for us to see you as a human, for us to understand who you are and what you want to do. We are looking for a diverse student body. We're looking for students that can bring different perspectives into the classroom and can talk about why they want to do the work that they want to do. There is no perfect or right response to something. What we want to see is that you're a real human, and that you have maybe you did an internship somewhere and you realized you hated that. And then now you know that you have a really big passion about this other thing, and that's why you want to study with us, and this is why you want to maybe work with a particular professor. That gives us insight into who you are, and then obviously highlighting all of those additional experiences that you've had outside of the classroom help us see you as a unique person, and that helps you stand out in the application process.
Got it. Thank you so much for that, Carrie. Carrie, one of the questions which has come up, Benishu, he's asking, from your experience of all the applications which have come through across the year, what distinguishes an outstanding statement of purpose from a merely good one to an outstanding one? Is it and also a follow-up question on top of that as well, that we are living in the age of AI. How should students use AI tools available for writing their statement of purposes? Should it be a guiding tool, or should it be a tool where you completely use it for writing your SOP?
Yeah, so each university is going to be a little bit different. I know some universities will just ask for a statement of purpose and give you sort of no boundaries in which to write that. And I would recommend talking to an talking to an advisor from that particular university about what they're looking for. But for us, it's a little bit different. We don't have just a plain statement of purpose. We actually have what we call essay prompts. So there are 2 essay questions in our application that you will need to reply to. So the first thing that's quite obvious, but you would be surprised how many people do not follow this, is answering the questions that's being asked of you. A lot of times people will come up and they want to come up with the ideal statement of purpose. They may use AI and say, what will make me, what's the perfect statement of purpose? Write it for me. And then they just copy and paste that into our essays. And that is not what we're looking for at all. What I tell students is, as I was just mentioning before, your essay response is really the only time that we get to see who you are and hear your voice as a person. Instead of being a CGPA number, instead of saying in your resume the things that you've done, we can read all of that. That makes you sound, frankly, robotic. So the essay is really your only time to shine as a human. First of all, we don't allow you to use AI to write your essay, number one. So you can't do that. You can use it as a tool, maybe to get some ideas, maybe to help with grammar, things like that. But I would say be very, very cautious in how you use it as a tool. One, we can tell when students are using AI. Two, as I was mentioning, this is one of the only opportunities that you can make your application stand out and you sound unique. When you're using AI, as you guys know, AI is pulling from things that are already pre-written. It is not necessarily great writing either. So I would say caution yourselves from stepping away from the idea of I need to have the perfect SOP and using the essay opportunities for yourself to talk about who I am. And this is an opportunity for me to distinguish myself in a way that talks about my voice, my passions, my, why I want to do this. So what I tell students is that, there isn't this perfect SOP or perfect essay response that we're looking for. There is no right answer. What we're looking to understand is, what are your goals? Why do you want to study at NYU? Can you articulate that? Can you be succinct in the way that you do that? And then how can you tell us a bit about you and your story? So that's what I would say. Obviously, you can talk about things, maybe some research that you're interested in at the university to highlight how that fits into that narrative. But thinking about this as an opportunity for you to really tell us your story.
Got it. Thank you so much for that, Carrie. Carrie, I know we are 2 minutes above time, but one last question which has come up by Sarthak. If you're okay, then we can take that question up.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Sarthak is asking, are there any assistantship, be it research assistantship or teaching assistantship opportunities which are available for graduate students, which would help them offset costs during the program?
Great question. And yes and no. So I want to clarify something. So at NYU, it's what we call assistantships. There's a few different types. So there is research, teaching, and graduate assistantships. Research and teaching assistantships we do have, but a majority of them are set aside for our PhD students, as PhDs are fully funded, and a part of their funding packages, sometimes they are guaranteed research or teaching assistantships, which do pay them usually an hourly wage or some sort of stipend. However, those sometimes do still become available, particularly the research assistantship opportunities for our master's students. They're just a little bit more selective and rare. But what I would say is that if you are interested in that, making and building relationships with faculty in your department is really great, because they're going to be the first ones to know when those become available. However, what a lot of our master's students have more access to is our graduate assistantships, which are really just a fancy word for an on-campus job. You can work in the admissions office with me. You can work in faculty department offices. You can work, on any of our on-campus jobs, in the cafeteria, in the gym, things like that. Those are graduate assistant positions. Those are available. They do provide an hourly wage, and those get posted on our what we call Handshake, which is basically like our job board that we have, and you'll get access to that a couple of weeks prior to coming on campus. So you can look for jobs even before you come on campus, but even if you don't find something before coming to campus, they post things throughout the semester. I think sometimes we post it even in October. So you'll see opportunities that you can do, and yes, you can have that help offset the costs. You can use, again, that's an hourly wage job, so you can use that money however you like. So if you want to put it towards tuition, you can. If you want to help, pay your rent, get food, whatever you want to use it for, you can.
Thank you so much for that, Carrie. all the students who are still waiting over here and have a lot of questions, we also have a profile evaluation session, as I mentioned earlier, on January 29th, starting from 7 p.m. IST. You can register via the link which is put up in the chat, or you can head to Seed Globe Education website and register for the meetup, which is happening on 29th of January. Thank you so much, Carrie, for joining us today. It was lovely chatting with you. And to all the students, all the very best for your application to NYU for fall 2026. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for attending. Bye.
Bye-bye.